Today we are gathered with the battle robot session 2. In previous session we learned these parts: weapon system, main control unit, electrical system, communication system, drive platform, and power source. Then today we are going to discuss about chassis and enclosure, how important the 3D modeling of a battle robot, then the best practices, challenge, and the programming. Talking about challenge, we are going to giving you guys about a challenge, something like building a battle robot, but it's practically hard in these days. So something like that. Then we are going to select a winner. So Chamira will inform about the challenge at the end of the session. Today I'm going to share my experience of building our Scorpion robot. Uh, when we're talking about the specs of this robot, the weight is 10 kilograms with the rules and regulations in Sri Lanka. Then size is also limited to 45 centimeter by 45 centimeter. Then we used a pneumatic flipper with the 7 bar of pressurized air. Then we used 4-cell lithium polymer battery as our power source. Then we use metal and aluminium for build the chassis. Then carbon fiber for enclosure, carbon fiber and aluminium actually. Then we used other than the brushed DC motors, we used hub motors, that means brushless motors for our drivetrain. Then we used off-road RC tires for get the traction. Then simply we use Arduino as our main controlling unit and RC transmitter for the control our battle robot. This is the important part. The first step is to choose our component correctly. That means we have rules and regulations to limit some specs of our components, and we have to maximize our performance. Within these boundaries, we have to carefully choose components that suit with our battle robot. As I mentioned before, we used a pneumatic flipper here. So operate the pneumatic flipper, actually we need the pneumatic cylinder. That means this actuator work with the compressed air. If a compressed air inserted by one hole, then this actuator is actuate on one direction. If we insert the compressed air from other direction, the actuator will actuate in other direction. Actually, we have to control that air direction. So for that purpose, we have to use this kind of electromechanical device. This is called a air solenoid. Actually, this is a air, electrically controlled air valve. This is the weaponry part. As I mentioned before, we used hub motors. This is actually a skating board motors with low kV rate brushless motor. To drive this motor, we used the compatible closed loop ESC. ESC means electronic speed controller, compatible with this motor. We use lithium polymer battery as our power source. Then we use main control as two Arduino Nanos, one for control the weapon system and one for control the drivetrain, to make the simply. This is RC receiver. To power the our main control unit, we use a buck converter to step down the voltage. As I discussed in the previous session, the basic drawback of this pneumatic flipper is the limited amount of flips, because we have to store the compressed air. So we have a compressed air stored in the air container. if we do some flips, the air will waste it. So the number of flips that can we get is limited by the air volume inside this air tank. So to overcome this problem, we add a small compressor inside our battle robot. So if the air pressure is getting low in this air container, we can operate the air compressor and fill the air container again. So we can get number of flips that we want without a limitation. That this is the basic electromechanical parts and electromechanical connections in our battle robot. It's important to have this kind of overview because it's easy to design and develop our battle robot. This is the first part. That means pick the right components and build this kind of overview about electromechanical connections in our battle robot. What is the next part? Actually, this is something like a drawing, conceptual design. That means as a battle robot builder, we should know end of the day what we are going to build, how it looks like. So first, we don't need any CAD tool, or we don't need any graphic tool, or just get a piece of paper and pencil or pen, whatever you like. Then draw what is in your mind, what you need to build. So it's simply I draw the battle robot in my mind as the front view and side view, how the weapons looks like, and the top view and the 3D view. Actually, this is the accuracy is not a problem, because this is just a conceptual design to get the overall idea about our robot appearance. And this is very important because this is help to design the 3D model of our battle robot, because after the completing this conceptual design, we know these parts can place here, and some parts cannot place here, something like that, and the appearance also. Apart from the operation of the battle robot, actually we have to think about the appearance of the battle robot also. So then conceptual design is also a very important step of our battle robot building steps. Then the 3D design with CAD tool. Actually, this step required some knowledge about a CAD tool. If you guys have that kind of knowledge, you can use SolidWorks, or you can use there is a free software called free open source software called FreeCAD to develop this kind of 3D model of our battle robot. I'm going to show the 3D model of my battle robot in SolidWorks. Actually, this is the 3D model that we have built. There are a lot of advantages of this step because we can accurately model our battle robot in this environment without building it. What are the advantages of that? The basic advantage is we can fit all the components within our boundaries. That means within our size limitations. Actually, we have to build our robot within 45 by 45 centimeter area. So we can, initially we can mark that 40 by 45 centimeter square limit, and we can place the component. That's a good advantage of this 3D modeling. And also, this is and also we can get idea about how much material we have to get for build this robot. That means we can calculate the length of these metal bars how much length do we need to complete this design. That kind of measurement can be taken by these 3D models. Actually, as the first step of 3D model, what I was done is develop the base of the this chassis. That means all the parts inside the battle robots is mounted on this base for hub motors and the compressor, air container, weapon, and other electronics are mounted on this base. So first I designed this base part. Then I place other components on top of this base part. Actually, you guys can think, do we need to build all these part with our own? No, actually, there are third-party sites that can download some 3D models. That means the 3D models of motors, hub motors, 3D models of wheels, 3D models of the compressors, some standard electronics circuits we can, and so 3D models of batteries we can directly download from those third-party websites. Actually, in here you guys can see I place all my basic components on this 3D model. Then I can get a good idea about how can I plan the enclosure of this battleboard. Without this kind of 3D model, actually we have to think about the enclosure after the fitting all these components in physically. But the advantage of this 3D modeling is uh, we can plan that enclosure in this environment. We can virtually see how our battle robot is going to be like with these components. And also the other important part is we can move components like this. This is our actually this is not the completed weapon. There is some part in front of it. It's not very important. Then we can move our weapon and see are there any components collide with my weapon path. That's also very important thing, because after the physically place all these components, if the weapon is collide with some critical parts when it's moving, it's not going to be good. So we can initially get idea about are there any component collide with my weapon. That's also a very good advantage of this 3D modeling. I think you guys will get the advantage, get the importance of this 3D modeling. You can actually learn about this 3D modeling with there are a lot of tutorials, and you guys can learn yourself also, and we'll also can help to learn these kind of tools. Okay, this is about the 3D modeling and its importance. What is the next step? Next step is we have to check our weapon system is working correctly. That means we can choose any weapon. You can choose any weapon you like. If it is a spinning drum, or if it is a vertical spinner, if it is a horizontal spinner, if it is a it can be a lifter, it can be a flamethrower, but we can't use flamethrowers in here. But as I mentioned in the previous session, in Sri Lanka, the most effective weapon is lifters and flippers with the limitation of weight and the size. So we decided to go with the pneumatic flipper, and we tested with the operation of that pneumatic flipper. Actually, initially we used we didn't use 7 bar. We used only 4 bars. We thought that it will give a good result. This is actually tested with the 4 bar. Actually, this is not enough. So we decided to increase our pressure. That kind of changes on our weapon systems can be recognized with this step. That means we have to test our weapon practically. Actually, this is just the chassis base and mount the pneumatic cylinder and the part of the weapon, then actuate the pneumatic solenoid and see how it's going to work. So we identify that we have to increase the pressure. So that type of things can be identified on this step. That means initial weapon test. Then other thing is the fabrication of the chassis. Again, next thing that means next thing is fabrication our chassis. So we use metal box bars to build our chassis, because we are using pneumatic flipper. So a lot of impacts can be coming out from the flips. So we have to build the robot very durably. So we use metal box bars and cut those metal box bars with the accurate length. The length are taken from the 3D model. That is the importance of 3D model. We can get the correct length measurements, correct placing of the all components. So we taken that measurements from the 3D model, then build the chassis. We have to use cutting tools and welding tools, then these kind of drilling tools to build the chassis. That's depend on the material and the method of fabrication of the chassis. What are the tool we required in this step? Actually, I'm going to talk about the tool that you need for the fabrication of your chassis. Basically, all the robot builders tend to use aluminum or metal to build their chassis. Actually, that's a good idea, because we have to make a durable robot that opponent cannot be damaged. So cut the metal. We need a hand grinder. Then we need hand drill or really bench drill or anything to make the drill holes. Then if we use if you use metal to welding process, we need a welding plant. And if you are using the riveting, so we need a rivet gun. Then if we have to cut some aluminum, small aluminum parts or something, we need this kind of saws. And we need screwdrivers, different kind of screwdrivers, and this kind of keys, Allen keys and X keys, that kind of keys. And for the electronic parts, we know we need a soldering station. Basically, we need a bulb. Then we need wire strippers. Importantly, don't use your teeth to remove the rubber of the wires. That's not a good practice. So use this kind of wire stripper to remove the rubber of the wires. Then we use these kind of measuring devices to mark the length that we have to cut or something like that. Then we have to use there can be any requirement of these kind of glue guns to glue some connections or something like that. Actually, these are the some parts that you need to build a battle robot. Then the safety. Actually, most of the battle robot chassis are made by metal, so we have to cut the metal, so we have to weld, we have to drill. Then we with those kind of process, we have to think about the safety. If you are using hand grinder, or if you are using a drill, if you are using saw, definitely you should wear these kind of safety goggle. So if you are using hand grinder, that metal particle can be directly come into your eyes, so it can be permanent. It will permanently damage your eyes. So it's good to use this kind of safety goggles if you are using a hand grinder. Then if you are using a welding plant or something like that, you have to use this kind of welding mask. So the bright light coming from the welding arc is not good for our eyes, and it's also damage the part of our eyes. So we have to use this kind of safety items to reduce that damage. And if you are using hammers, or if you are using some any cutting tool, it's good to use this kind of gloves. It will reduce it will prevent the damage your fingers with the cutting tools and hammers like tools. And it's also good to have a mask, because the small metal particles can be inserted to your body with your nose. So it's not good for our lungs and other parts. So it's good to have a mask. And it's good to wear shoes when you are working. And it's importantly, you should have a medical kit. If some damage is happened, we have to it's able to supply first aid to the damaged person. So you should have a medikit with your workshop. These are the some safety concerns we have to think about. Actually, building a battle robot is a very funny thing, very interesting thing. So don't don't waste that movement with these kind of damages. So please be aware with these things. These about the safety. Then the main controller PCB. Actually, I talked about the main controller in previous session. In this battle robot, we used two Arduino boards to control the robot. That means one for drivetrain and other for weapon system. I will show you guys the design. Actually, I used EagleCAD tool for this PCB design. Actually, this is the schematic to Arduino Nano boards. This is for weapon controlling. So there in this step is this step is also a very important step. You guys can directly use jumper cables and make the connection between motor drivers and Arduino boards or anything. But this is a very neat work. That means you can design some generalized PCB that can expand the PWM outputs, then digital outputs and digital inputs, that kind of generalized PCB too. Then you can use it in future also. Even if it is not a battle bot or any robot, you can use that PCB. That's very important. This is the PCB design we have done. We use the EagleCAD designing software. There are a lot of PCB design softwares around the world. In EagleCAD, there is also a free version, but it has certain limits. But there are KiCad, that's a totally free edition. Then there are a lot of PCB editing tools like Altium, OCAD, ECDA, something like that. You can use any software tool. The basic idea of the software tools are same on every platform, and you can practice them and design this kind of PCB to use as our main control unit. And you can use this PCB in future to other robots also. then you can fabricate this PCB with the etching process in our home with your hands-on experience, or you can use JLC PCB or PCB way. There are a lot of PCB manufacturers in China. It's not very expensive. You can get their service to have a good PCB with your battle robot. That's about the PCB design. I mentioned that previously, this also can be done by like this. That means we can just connect jumpers with Arduino to the motor controller, so any other electrical device. But the problem is, if our robot get a huge impact from other robot weapon, sometimes this connection can be lost, because these jumpers haven't any lock-in mechanism. So, but our PCB, we can include the lock-in connectors, so the connection is good. Whether we have we had a good impact, we had a huge impact, the connection is secure. This is the importance of having a PCB like that. This is about the PCB main controller PCB. Then actually in this design we fabricate the motor controller also. Actually we can buy a motor controller from a shop and used with our battle robot. But what we have done here is we get an open source design and edit it in a certain way to fit with our requirements. Then we send the design to China and fabricated it and soldered it in here with our tools. Actually, this is a good experience. Soldering a PCB is a good experience. It needs patience and a lot of things. Then this is that PCB. Actually, this is a dual motor drive ESC. This has encoder feedbacks. As I mentioned before, we used hub motors and not a DC brushed motors. So maintain the torque and drive correctly, we need to get the encoder reading as well. So because of that, we use this closed loop motor controller. This is the fabrication of that motor controller in our labs. But don't think you guys also fabricate the motor control in your own. That's not a much needed step. You can just buy a motor controller and use it with the your battle robot. In Sri Lanka also there are a lot of online stores now available, so you can just order the motor drivers and just use it. This is the testing of the motor controllers. Hence these are soldered with our hands, so we have to test it. We send some USB commands and test our hub motors with this motor controller. Actually, it's successful. And I have to share some experience about this hub motor controllers. Actually, as I mentioned before, to control these hub motors, these motor controllers are taking the encoder values of the motor. The motor manufacturers are place some encoders inside the motor and give the connection, give the some wires to connect the motor controller. So there can be some problem about the some noise in this encoder lines. This happens a lot. In lot of forums, a lot of developers are saying that the encoder noises happen there. If you guys also face that kind of problem, you can simply add some picofarad range capacitors between each encoder lines and the ground that will solve the encoder noise problems in these kind of closed loop motor drivers. This is some practical scenario because because the encoder wires are coming together with the high power power wires, motor power wires, so there can be some noises added to encoder line, so we have to filter it out. That's some practical scenario we have experienced in this design. Then we have test all motors with the motor drivers we build. Actually, initially the you guys can see the acceleration. We can control the robot well, so it's out of control and going through a mud area. The mud is all over the robot. Then we have to wash the we wash the robot to remove the mud. It's that's the importance of these hub motors. It can get huge acceleration. Initially, it can get huge acceleration. So your driving skills should in a high level to control this kind of motors. This is also some test of our motors with our motor driver. You can see the acceleration. Actually, these motors haven't any gearbox, but with the closed loop controlling of the motor driver, this can get a huge acceleration and huge torque. You can see this is not a fast forward video. You can see the acceleration of the robot. Actually, in the competition also, a lot of participants cannot even think about that acceleration. Just start the countdown, and within a second, our robot is near the opponent robot. So that's the main advantage of these brushless motors. Can get a huge acceleration. These are some outdoor testings. Actually, the motor, the initially hub motors with the very hard rubber covering, so it's not good to get the traction. So we get the RC tires and remove the rims of RC tires and connect with the hub motors with this RC tires. That about the motor testing. Then the weight check. This is a very important thing because we have to limit our robot with the weight of 10 kilograms. That's the weight limitation of our robot. So we measure the weight of every part of our robot: the chassis, motors, motor drivers, electronic parts, solenoid valve, piston, weapon, every part we have checked. Then finally, the total is higher than the 10 kilograms. Actually, much higher than the 10 kilograms. So our robot is, if you are going with this weight, our robot is definitely disqualifying with this weight. So we have to then we have to reduce some weight. So we remove some metal parts and add some changes to our robot chassis and robot weapon. Actually, that is the next part. That's the next part we have done. Actually, this is a very important part, the weight check and weight check. If you are building a battle robot, every stage you have to measure the weight of your battle robot. If the weight is higher than the limited weight, you have to remove some parts of your robot. So think about that. Then the next part is the adjustment for the chassis and the weapon to make the battle robot lighter. So we have removed some metal bars here and add aluminium bars for that parts. So finally, we was able to we make within the 10 kilograms. And weapon also, initially we used 2 bars. Then we decided to go with a 1 bar and a long weapon. So it's also reduce some weight. In here also we used a welding shield to protect eyes when we are welding. This is our weapon tip. We make it very sharp to get underneath the opponent robot. We need actually very little ground clearance to get underneath the opponent robot. So we sharp this weapon tip as we can. Then we as I said, we removed some metal bars and add some aluminium bars apart for that metal bars. These are the aluminium frame that we have added other than this metal bars. Those are the adjustments we have done. Then we measure the all parts of our battle robot. Then it came with 9.149 kilograms. This is actually without the enclosure. So we have very limited weight to allocate to the enclosure. So because of that, we move to carbon fiber, because carbon fiber is very light and hard material. So we move to carbon fiber because this weight limitation. Then next step is the placement of our component. Actually, first we have placed the motors and wheels. Then we place the weapon. Actually, this is the air container. So it has to protect very well, because it contains 7 bar pressurized air, compressed air. Then this is our pneumatic air lines. So this also have to place nicely. In this step, the need of your work is very important, because in a battle robot there are signal lines, there are power wires. In here, in our design, there are air lines, pneumatic air lines. If you place those lines, those components and those wires very neatly, you can find out if there is any error or any bug or any damaged component. You can find easily. So in this step, your neatness of work is very important. Actually, this is the main controller PCB placement. This PCB is made by here, actually with the PCB milling machine. This is the placement of main controller. Then the enclosure, this is the enclosure we made by the carbon fiber. When talking about the enclosure, you have to think about 2 things. First thing is you have to protect your critical component with the enclosure. That's the main thing, the idea about the enclosure. The other thing is you have to you able to remove enclosure, any part of wall enclosure or part of enclosure easily to access the electronic or mechanical component inside the battle board. Why is that? Because if in a battle battle time, if some component is got damaged, we have to replace that. So we have to we able to remove some part of our enclosure easily and access to that component. Then we can replace that component with a new one. So that's that should keep in mind also. For that purpose, we used this kind of enclosure. That means the bottom side of enclosure can easily open. Then after that, we can access any electronic or mechanical part with this open area. That's about the enclosure and placement of the robot. Then the electrical wiring, this is also a part of placing the component. Here is also, you have to, as I mentioned before, you have to choose correct wires and solder it properly, because in battle time we cannot ensure that we get a lot of hits, lot of impacts from other robots. So our soldering joints have to be perfect. Actually, these are the wires that we can see in the market. Very cheap twisted wires, and these are silicon wires, and these are auto wires. When talking about these twisted wires, these wires are okay to transmitting very low power, but if we are use these wires to power up our motors or motor drivers or weapon, it's actually not a good idea, because this wire has very limited number of cores. So we can transmit very limited current with these twisted wires. And then if we, but these auto wires, we can select many sizes and many colors. So we can use the wire with having a large number of cores to transmit the power to our motors or weapons. So it's good to use these kind of auto wires rather than the previously showed cheap twisted wires. And also we can use the silicon wires, but the problem, silicon wires is also available in many sizes, but the problem is in Sri Lanka we cannot find every sizes that we want. Sometimes we can't find. So a good solution is the auto wires, because it's made for the automobile industry. It's very resist to the heat, so it's good to transmit the power with our battle robot design. This is enclosure. Actually, as I mentioned before, we used carbon fiber, then aluminum bars and aluminum rivets to make the enclosure. Actually, these are carbon plates. Actually, these are thickness around 2 millimeters, not very thick, but it's very hard. It's actually protect our critical components and electronic components, so that's the basic need of the enclosure. And as I mentioned before, our bottom part of the enclosure is designed like to easily remove it and can access to every electronic and mechanical component inside the battle robot. These are the main concerns that you have to think about when when building the enclosure. You can actually, if you can't find carbon fiber, you can simply use aluminum. You can use aluminum plates with different thicknesses. It's also good because aluminum is also a light weighted material, and hardness is in considerable level, so you can also use aluminum. So, why we are using not a heavy metal to this enclosure? Because we have to allocate our weight more to our weapon and chassis and drivetrain, because that are the main parts that because your robot has to move quickly, and your the robot's drivetrain has to have a lot of torque, and your weapon has to be in a weapon has to in a very dangerous. So you have to allocate every weight for those systems. So it's good to have lightweighted material for the enclosure design because of that. Then the last weight check. It's actually this is all finished robot with the enclosure and all electronics and with the battery and all the systems. So the weight is actually 10.014 kilograms. In here also 14 grams is greater than the limit amount. So we add some drill holes in these bars, so we can be able to stay within the 10 kilogram limit. Actually, this is the competition day. Actually, it's tied to the 10 kilograms. So it's okay. We qualified our robot, and this is the result of this pneumatic flipper. It actually work very well. The robot is fast. The flipping is fast. So this is the first time used pneumatic flipper and hub motors in drivetrain. So we make a difference, and it's worked very well. Actually, this is in UALS robot battle in race. Unfortunately, in this competition, our weapon is damaged. That means our compressed air source. That means our air compressor rubber seals are damaged, so we cannot operate our weapon. So we lost this competition. But after that, in the SLT robot battles, we achieved the second place. Actually, you guys also think to do a different thing, not basically actually using brushed motors to drivetrain is okay, because the brushed motors are the brush motors we can easily find on market. That's okay. But try to add a new weapon, or try to use a combination of weapons. Actually, that's a good thing, because a lot of boat builders are going to build just a wedge boat. That means there is not any active weapon, just a battle robot with the ramp. So idea is push upon robot and win the match. But it's not a interesting way to win a match. So you can try a new weapon in every battle bot competition and see whether it's working or not, and can make improvement to improve the weapon and drivetrain. So then this robot building task is actually getting very interesting. That's all for the my side. Then I'll invite my friend Chamira to continue with the session.
Thank you, Roger. Let me share my screen first. Right. You guys can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Cool. Before going into BattleBot implementation sessions, let me give you some of the insights of the other robotics competition happening in Sri Lanka. So you can have a knowledge about the robotics competition in Sri Lanka, and you can apply to those. You can compete and have fun. So I have chosen 5 different robotics competitions that I've competed during my university life. So this is the first one. This is my first robotics experience. The TriZ tournament 2017, organized by Department of Electronics and Telecommunication Engineering, University of Moratuwa. It's kind of an interdepartment robotics competition. So the task was held outside task was like to navigate from an initial location to the destination, which is placed 50 meters away from the initial location using GPS. Uh, and there were two these kind of cardboard walls there with one one was the white one was with white color and the other was a black one. So there's a image sorry color sensor placed in front of the robot, as you can see in this picture, which identifies differentiate black and white walls. Then the robot has had to follow the wall to find out this cutout to enter the area where the metal ring is placed inside this basket. Once the robot is inside this wall, robot could use this manipulator with an electromagnetic indefector to grab this metal ring. So that was the task. The reason I chose this task to demonstrate you is there is no much robotics competition happening in outside. So this one is an outside competition. So the main reason is like when the competition is held outside, there are a lot of noises generated in the area as well. So and we can rely only on sensors like GPS and IMU sensors such as gyroscopes, accelerometers, and compass. We cannot rely on motor speed sensors like encoders because tires usually skid and skip on this sand floor. So the task was quite difficult because the navigation can only be done using GPS. If there is a cloudy sky, we cannot even rely on GPS signals. So we have to use IMU sensor fusion as well. That is why these outdoor tasks are really competitive, and we won the first runners-up place in this competition as well. Okay guys, what you have next is Actress Explosion 2017, a BattleBot competition organized by University of California. This is my first BattleBot experience, and this is the place I met my friend Ruchira as well. Here we got fourth place among 48 other competitors. I will show the inside of this robot in the later part of this session, and in these videos you can see how the robot is competing with the others. And this kind of open arena BattleBot competition, which is really dangerous. Nowadays, all BattleBot arenas are covered with metal meshes, so at least have a fence to avoid harms for the drivers and the viewers as well. Right. This is my second BattleBot experience, UW BattleBot 2018, organized by University of Uva-Villas. They also we were able to participate till the final rounds, but unable to win a single match with the robot which won this competition. So in these videos you can see how our robot performed in disabling the other robots. Right. Heavy Eurobocon 2019 just held in Mongolia. I got the opportunity to participate in Sri Lanka in an international event. For the competition, we had to build two robots. First one is an manual robot, manual wheeled robot, and the second one was an autonomous legged robot. For the autonomous legged robot, we use BLDC motors, brushless DC motors, as you can see in this video. Task was to carry an object which has some message in it called Judge. As you can see in this video, this is the message written Judge that I was talking about. And the manual robot has to pass it to the legged autonomous robot. Afterwards, the manual robot had to shoot some objects called Shagai. The way the Shagai shoot gives points to our team. After collecting enough points, the legged robot can start climbing the ramp. The first team to finish the whole task named as the winner of that each battle. For in this competition, we couldn't win even a single game because those technical difficulties we faced in this in the actual competition day. Also, I wasn't able to visit Mongolia to participate in this event, but I was working in the team at the time. Okay, guys. What I have to demonstrate next is the most interesting project that I have done ever in robotics. This autonomous carom bot we built as a for a team of 4 as a final year project of our. So it plays a series of best possible shots to win a game. The manipulator shown in this picture has 4 degree of freedom motions, so it can place the disc by itself and play 360 shots as well. Thumbing shots are available in carom, so the robot can play those kind of shots as well. Also, we have programmed this robot to play against a human opponent. We play several games like games with opponents as well, games with human opponents as well. In this video, you can see how the robot is capable of executing series of shots in order to pocket all the available pieces on the board. It can even decluster clusters in the board and play the shots according to those clusters as well. So guys, let me demonstrate how this robot works. There is a camera placed on top of the board. So the camera can capture this image of the board. Actually, this image is captured using that camera. So this is the input to the system. This is how the system shows the board. And after running some image processing techniques, we can extract the locations of pieces and edges of the board in plots as well. There we define a 2D XY coordinate plane on top of the board, so we can calculate XY coordinates of each piece and plots as well. After the calculation, we run some rule-based algorithm and machine learning techniques, deep reinforcement learning techniques to derive the best possible shot available from all possible shots available. In this diagram, you can see it shows all the possible shots in green lines. The best possible shot is defined like this. It may be the shortest. It may have the shortest distance to travel. After calculating the sequence of shots, we fed those shot parameters to the manipulator. Afterwards, the manipulator can execute the series of shots calculated by our algorithms. For the implementation of this robot, This is the 3D model of this robot, and these are some of the PCBs that we made during this project. And we won the second place in IAS Industry Application Society IEEE International Robotics Competition in 2020 held in USA. Also, we were able to publish a system paper on SEPSI conference 2020. So the reason behind showing this project is for you guys to understand what are the possible areas that we can address using the knowledge that we have gathered from this set of series of sessions. After following this series of sessions, you will be able to know what are the applications that we can address using robotics, machine learning, AI, AR, those kind of things. So this is not only limited to BattleBot. You can use this knowledge to solve any robotics related problem you're facing in your day-to-day lives. Right. During the last session, we promised you that we will talk about best practices to maintain while building a BattleBot. So let's start with protection. When it comes to protection, there are several major components that we have to intensively think about the protection. Those are battery, wheels, motors, the control circuit we are using, the RF receiver, finally the cutoff or the kill switch. Starting from the battery, if you guys can remember the last session, we summarized that in most of the times we are using either a lithium polymer or a lithium ion battery as our main power source when we are building a BattleBot. So those two types of batteries need intensive care when handling those batteries. So when it's come to the protection of the battery, we must use a fuse to avoid overcurrent discharge from the battery. In the last session, we discussed how to calculate the maximum discharge current that a lithium polymer or a lithium ion battery can discharge for a continuous period of time. So it's better to use a blown LEO is slightly less than the value fuse to protect the circuit. So we can make sure that the battery will not get discharged at its maximum rate at any time, because if motors are going to draw a current which is greater than the maximum discharge current of the battery, the fuse is blown up. The second thing we have to care about the battery is the charging. Always make sure to use a balanced charger, which is like P6 charger to charge your lithium polymer batteries, as they provide all the sufficient protection while charging the battery. We have to make sure the charging cycles are correctly calculated and supplied. So the recommended charger can supply those cycles to the battery while charging the battery. And as I mentioned earlier, we calculated how to calculate the maximum discharge current of the battery. So once all the motors are installing, those motors will draw the maximum amount of current that a motor can draw. Make sure the sum of all drawing current is less than the maximum discharge current of the battery to avoid overcurrent discharge from the battery, for the safety of the battery. And while providing this high current, battery may get heated. So to make sure, if you guys, it is better if you guys can mount the battery near to the enclosure, so the battery can dissipate all of its heat to the metal enclosure, and the temperature rise may not harm the battery. And the most important part when it comes to batteries, to avoid physical damages to the battery. If a weapon or a sharp object hits the battery, but lithium polymer or a lithium ion battery can explode, so catch a fire. So it is better to avoid such scenarios. As you can see in this figure, these are the fuses that we are used to avoid overcurrent. And here is our lithium polymer battery. As you can see, over the battery, it is fully covered with the metal enclosure. There are 2 layers of metal enclosures covering the battery, so there will be no harm can be done to the battery by the opponent weapon. Those are the main points that we have to think about the protection of the battery. Right. When it's come to wheels, we really have to protect our wheels from opponent robot. Remember, the opponent robot and the opponent team will try to harm your wheel and destroy your wheel and completely disable it. Once your wheel get destroyed or damaged, you can't move your robot any further. So it's better to protect your wheels. To protect our wheels, we can fully cover the wheels with metal enclosure, so no harmful weapon can reach our wheels from the outside. So it is better to cover the wheels as much as possible. Also, make sure to wipe the wheels before placing your robot on the battle arena, because in the battle arena your wheels can catch dust. Once there is dust on the wheels can skid on the arena surface. So it's better to wipe out all the dust before competing with an opponent. Protecting the motors can be discussed in 2 ways. First one is the outside damages. In here you can see the motor is directly coupled to the wheels. In the last session we talked about 3 coupling mechanisms. Here we used direct coupling mechanism. So if a wheel get any hit from an opponent weapon, that impact can cause motor to damage. The motor shaft can be twisted, the motor can get loosened from its fixtures. Those can be harm, can be there if an opponent weapon can reach our wheels or the motors. So it's better to cover the wheels to avoid those attacks from the opponent weapons to our motor system. Second, if a motor continuously starts to stall continuously, it will draw its maximum current. Drawing the maximum current while installing the motor can heat up the motor a lot. So the high temperature can cause this motor to get damaged. So as a battleboard driver, you always have to make sure your motors are not stalling for a longer period of time. Right. control circuit or the main circuit board is another important part that we have to take care of. In most of the cases, this circuit board is fully covered with the metal enclosure, so we don't have to worry much about reaching of opponent's weapon and sharp objects to the circuit. But what we have to make sure is that our motor drivers doesn't get heated up. Motor driver doesn't get heated up due to the high current drawings of the motors. As I mentioned earlier, these motors will draw their maximum current the most of the time. So it's better to make sure the motor drivers can handle those current for a longer period of time without getting heated up above their working temperatures. Here, as you can see, I have made my own motor driver using two SPDT single pole double throw relays for each side. You have to use two SPDT relays to make a single edge bridge to drive motors of one side and another for the other side. Also, I used an Arduino Pro Mini microcontroller board as my main microcontroller. It carries Atmega 328P microcontroller. The reason behind this is this has a smaller footprint compared to all microcontroller boards carrying Atmega 328P. So it is easy to integrate a circuit board with smaller footprint inside our robot. Also, make sure, as Roger discussed in last section, there are three types of wires you can use while making a battle board. Here I have used bottom wires to power up the motors and the circuitry. So make sure you're using appropriate wires, otherwise the wires can get melted due to the higher current drawing of the motors. Also, as I mentioned earlier, always use fuses. It is because when the motors are drawing higher current, the battery tries to deliver that current demand. So the battery can get exploded to catch fire if it is trying to deliver a higher current than it is rated current. So it is better to avoid those damages to the battery as well as for the drivers and the viewers as well. As we discussed in the last session, the RC receiver can get signal interferences if we mount the RC receiver inside this metal enclosure. So it is better to avoid those conditions. One thing we can do is to mount the RC receiver inside this metal enclosure and take the two antennas out of this metal enclosure. But make sure not to expose those antennas to the outside. If your opponent destroys your RC receiver antenna, you cannot control your robot anymore. So make sure to keep the antenna fully covered without making any interferences to the signals. Also, there are two antennas coming out from the RC receiver. As a best practice, it is better to mount those two antennas in 90-degree angle for a better reception of the signals. Also, try to avoid mounting those antennas near to motors because the electromagnetic fields generated by the motors can affect receiving of signals if we mount those RC receiver antennas near to the motors. Last, we have to discuss about this cutoff switch, also sometimes called as the kill switch of the robot. In BattleBot rules and guidelines, they are asking you, requesting you to keep a kill switch to kill or disable your entire robot. In the malfunctioning situation, if the robot is not obeying your commands, we have to kill the robot to avoid any harm to the opponents and judges and judge viewers. So it is better to keep a kill switch you can access easily, but not by the opponent robot. If your opponent robot hit that kill switch, there is no point in competing anymore. So make sure to hide that kill switch, but you have to keep in mind that in any case you only have the switch to disable your robot. So make sure to place it in a convenient place. Here is the kill switch of this robot. When you're choosing your kill switch, make sure the switch can pass the maximum discharge current of the battery. Otherwise, the switch will get destroyed. And as I mentioned earlier, don't expose this switch much to the outside. So this is one of the BattleBots made out of considering all of the best practices and the protection mechanisms that we discussed early in these sessions. Also, the methods discussed by my friend Richard as well. As you can see in this picture, you can identify how hard the chassis is made out of to make it a strong robot that the opponent cannot harm easily. The metal chassis is made out of steel bars and white iron steel plates. In this figure, you can identify the RF receiver antenna is coming out of the metal enclosure to avoid any signal interferences that can cause due to the placing antenna inside of the metal enclosure. So as I discussed earlier, it is better to keep this antenna out of this metal enclosure to avoid such signal interferences. This is the complete BattleBot with its enclosure. The enclosure is made out of aluminum and steel, so it is really hard for the opponent robot to puncture this enclosure and harm the components inside this enclosure. This is the mechanism that I used to used for the lifting mechanism of this robot as shown in here. This is the gear system we discussed in the previous session, the worm wheel gear system. Here I have used a motorcycle starter motor to protect this worm and thereafter the wheel to lift the robot. This mechanism worked pretty well in the first session of the competition of Atlas explosion, but due to the failure of motor drivers, we couldn't operate this weapon at the later part of the competition. So it is better to make sure your motor drivers can handle all the current that this kind of motor requires. Right. In the topic of driving techniques, what we are going to discuss is about some of the driving practices that we can use to disable the opponent robot much easier. For the first technique, I used a convect happened in UW BattleBots 2018. Uh, Here we can disable the opponent robot by moving or pulling this opponent robot to one of these pits. So as you can see in this picture, those pits are placed in the vertices of this diagonal. So what I was trying to do here is to bring the robot to the mid of the pit and this robot's straight line. Let me demonstrate it further. Now, now you can see both my robot and the opponent robot and the pit, all of these components are in a straight line. So it is easy for my robot to pull this robot to this pit rather than competing it in a straight line. That was my plan, and it's quite successful. And also in this type of opponent robot, if you're facing this kind of opponent robot which has a spinning weaponless spinning drum or spinning object has the weapon, it is better to attack the robot early as possible, because at the start of the battle these discs or these spinning weapons cannot be moving. So after the signal of the start of the battle, only we can power off these spinning drums or the weapons. So it take much time to get its inertia of rotating. So it is better to attack this kind of robots early as possible before getting the inertia of this rotating weapon. Otherwise, the impact will be huge, and our robot won't be able to tolerate that impact. As you can see in this video also, I was trying to attack this robot as much as earlier, so the spinning drum cannot turn at a higher speed, creating a lot of inertia. At this time, the weapon is starting, so there was no impact at all for my robot from that weapon. Right. In this technique, you can identify those two winning robots are trying to attack the opponent robot from the rear side. To use this driving technique, you have to have a extremely good practice in driving, operating your robot, because in the middle of the arena, your robot will turn into different orientations rather than what you have practiced so far. So it is better to get practiced before competing in the battle board, because this kind of driving techniques can be really working your way if you have practiced driving your robot very well. Also, those videos I got from YouTube, there are a lot of this kind of resources in the YouTube as well. These battles were from Chromium Collision 2017. There are also international competition videos as well, so you can visit there and pay. My advice is to pay attention to the driving techniques as well, rather than paying attention to the robot weapons. Pay attention to the driving techniques, because that is what it matters when it is come to the battlebot arena. Right. In the last set of videos, I was trying to explain how practicing improves your driving and help you to win competitions in the battlebot arena. In this set of videos, let's have a look at how lack of practice results in disasters. In each of these battles, see the robot is getting out of the arena by themselves, which results in losing the match. This can cause by two reasons. First one and the most common one is lack of practicing. Uh, Look at this robot. This robot going out of the arena by itself due to lack of practicing of driving. The other reason is signal interferences. In this robot, you can see it's not the actual driving out of the arena, but the robot itself driving out of the arena. In the last session, we discussed how to avoid these kind of behaviors using fail-safe mechanisms if the receiver doesn't receive any signal from the transmitter. We can program the robot to do a certain task like holding its position. Uh, otherwise, uh, Otherwise it will result in these kind of disasters. So it's better to keep practicing because you have to invest both all your money, effort and time to build in these robots. Uh, Remember, all of these videos I got from a one single 9 minutes clip. So think how many these kind of disasters are happening in BattleBot world. So the most important part of the BattleBot is it is better to make your robot even 2 weeks ahead, 2 weeks before the competition and keep practicing for those 2 weeks. Otherwise, you don't even know your robot performing well or not. What what parts should be, you have to renew those kind of information you don't know if you are not practicing very well. So my advice is to practice before the day of BattleBot competition.
Right. Okay, guys. Thank you very much for being with us for till the end of this our second session of BattleBot. These two sessions, what we tried to talk about is the basic building blocks of making a BattleBot. So we talked about weapons, electronics, wires, communication, power sources, enclosure designing, and my friend talked about 3D modeling today and the best practices as well. So hope you guys got maximum out of these sessions. As I mentioned earlier, our target is to give you an idea about how we can use robotics, machine learning, AI, AR to solve problems we face in day-to-day lives. So be with us throughout all of these sessions. Uh, I, I hope you guys get a maximum out of these sessions. Uh, as we know, due to these pandemic situations in the country and the world, we cannot predict an exact day of the next BattleBot competition. So it is better to get ready. Also keep in mind if there is a BattleBot competition organized, organizers will announce it. Organizers will pronounce the day of the battle at least a month ahead. So it is better to be ready with your design and start collecting money if you need for to build your battlebot. So once the organizers announce the date of the competition, you can start building your robot. Okay, as we promised early in this session, let me introduce the challenge we are going to give you for these sessions. As I mentioned, it is better to have a conceptual design before the announcement of a BattleBot competition. So we are asking you to think about the BattleBot that you are going to build. Come up with the drawing of the conceptual design. You can use either pencil sketches or CAD computer designing tools if you're familiar with those tools, or you can learn those tools and develop the conceptual design. Also, make a bill of material, BOM. You can find examples to BOM if you Google it. BOM, the BOM you are making should contain each and every component you need for your BattleBot. Description of the component, quantity you need from each component, price of a single component, and the total price are the main topics we are looking for here. So you can find the price from online electronics retail shops. There are plenty of them available in Sri Lanka. And the BOM should match with your conceptual design. That's obvious. Huh? Create the BOM in a Google spreadsheet. Save it in a folder. Add the images of the conceptual design to the same folder. Share the link of that particular folder which contains your BOM and conceptual designing using the following link. You can find the link in our WhatsApp group, and in the chat of this webinar, I'm going to publish the link in the chat of this webinar. And also, I'm going to spell out the link for you guys. So write it down. http://bit.ly/M_S_B_2_2021. Let me repeat it again. http://bit.ly/M_S_B_2_2021. So I think you guys clearly understood the challenge. And Ruchira, I think there are no more unanswered questions left in the chat. So I think we can wrap up this session of how to make a BattleBot. So thank you very much for being with us till the end. Make sure to join all the future sessions. Motivate your colleagues to join these sessions as well. So
Samir, can you explain the challenge again? Some participants asking for that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, let me repeat the task again. As we don't know the exact day of a BattleBot competition, it is better to have a conceptual design before the announcement of a BattleBot competition. So we are asking you to think about a BattleBot that you're going to build. Come up with the drawing of the conceptual designing. Conceptual designing means the rough sketch of a BattleBot outside of the BattleBot, how it looks like. You can use pencil sketches, that is better, or you can use CAD or computer designing tools if you're familiar with it. You can use free CAD tools like FreeCAD and get familiarized with it and develop the conceptual design. The main goal is to develop the conceptual design. You can use either pencil or CAD tools, and also make a bill of material which is called as BOM. You can find examples to BOM if you Google it. BOM should contain BOM, or the bill of material should contain each and every component you need for your Battlebot. Description of the component, quantity you need from each component, price of a single component, total price are the main topics we are looking for in the bill of material. You can find the price of the components you are going to purchase from online electronics retail shops. There are plenty of them in Sri Lanka. And the BOM should match with your conceptual design. Create the bill of material in a Google spreadsheet or Excel sheet. Save it in a Google Drive folder. Add the images of your conceptual design into the same folder. And share the link of that particular folder with us using the link I described given you earlier. Is it clear now? Or I can repeat. If you don't get the task clearly, please raise your hand. Also, if you have a look at the chat, Ranjan has posted the challenge in the chat as well, so you can read it out and understand better. Ranjana, I think we can wrap up this session for today. Since there are a lot of hand raising happening here, let me explain the task in Sinhala. ඔයාලට කරන්න තියෙන්නේ ඔයාලා ඊළඟට හදන්න ඉන්න BattleBot Robo ගේ conceptual design එකක්. Conceptual design එකක් කියන්නේ pencil sketch එකක් කොලයක ඇඳලා හෝ CAD tool එකකින් conceptual design එක design කරලා ඒකේ photo එකක් ගන්න. ඊට පස්සේ bill of material කියලා document එකක් තියෙනවා. ඒ document type එක ඔයගොල්ලන්ට Google කරන්න හොයාගන්න පුළුවන් bill of material කියන්නේ මොකක්ද කියලා. ඒකට අපිට ඕන කරනවා ඔයාලා පාවිච්චි කරන්න යන components වල විස්තරය එක component එකකින් කොච්චර ප්‍රමාණයක් ඔයාලට ඕන වෙනවද සහ ඔයාලට ඒකට යන මුදල කියන විස්තර ටික තමයි bill of material එකට අවශ්‍ය කරන්නේ. ඊට පස්සේ bill of material එකයි ඔයාලගේ conceptual design එකේ photos ටිකයි Google folder එකක save කරලා ඒ folder එකේ link එක අපි කලින් කියපු link එකට ගියාම තියෙන Google sheet එකේ share කරන්න පුළුවන්. So I think it is clear now. Also, we will be posting the task in the WhatsApp group as well. Okay, so there are no more questions. We are going to wrap up today's sessions. So thank you for being with us till the end of this session, and stay safe, guys, and have a good night.